Gabrielle Guthrie. I'm the designer, co-founder of a company called Moxley. And I'm really excited to be in Jerusalem for the first time engaging in a conversation on ways in which design can shape the future of women's health. But first, let me give you a little background on Moxley. Moxley is a female-founded company based in San Francisco. In 2014, my co-founders and I got together because we knew we wanted to design products for women. Consumer products, 80% of consumer products are made by women, yet the majority of the products themselves are marketed and manufactured and made by men. And we started with the breast pump because every single woman, the hundreds of women we spoke to, every single one of them told us that pumping makes me feel like a cow. Now, the funny thing about designing breast pumps is when I tell people that, I usually get one of two reactions. Either it's, oh, cool, you design breast pumps, or it's, oh, cool, you design breast pumps. I was at a networking event recently, and I met this really young male entrepreneur, and he surprised me when he said, oh, cool, breast pumps. But then he said, so you can like make them bigger? We were both pretty disappointed in one another. So no, we don't make them bigger. Our main product is called the Moxley Flow. It's a discreet and hands-free breast pump kit that works with existing pumps so nursing women can provide milk for their babies. A little bit of breastfeeding 101 in case someone's not familiar. It's a supply and demand situation. So women need to pump when they're away from their babies, otherwise their supply could dry up. Now the problem with pumps that with the traditional pumps is that they ship with these really large accessory kits that require women to take their shirts off, then take their bras off, and then hold the devices up against their chest for 20 minutes every few hours up to a year. So you imagine that's very difficult to get any work done while you're doing that. So we designed the Flow to be slim and sleek and fit under the bra so women can pump discreetly wherever they are. So on the left, you can see what it's like to pump with a traditional pump accessory kit, and then on the right, you can see what it looks like to pump with the Moxley Flow. And we're so delighted when women send us pictures of them using our product at home, at work, on the go, or out with friends. So today I'm talking about women's health, and why women's health specifically and not men's health is because women's health more than men's health is misunderstood, and it's understudied, and it's underfunded. The unique challenges that women face in terms of their health, in terms of reproductive health, maternal health, menopause, and sexual violence are all under attack. There are many systemic issues that result in a degraded care and health for women. So before we talk about the future looks like, let's take a snapshot of what health is today, and we'll just look at three different things. So the first issue is a lack of access to quality care. And lack of access can be caused by legal restrictions, by poverty, a scarcity of qualified providers, and a lack of studies on women's health that mean that even when women do have access to providers, the providers may not be working with accurate information in order to properly diagnose their patients. Carolyn Witt, the founder of the women's clinic in New York, TIA, has seen that women are on wait lists to get even a pap smear in a place like New York City. She says access to basic reproductive health care, birth control, abortion, STD testing, you name it, is difficult. And she goes on to say that this is in part because of a high burnout rate with OBGYNs who have an early retirement rate of 40 years old. Additionally, the scarcity of healthcare providers means that there's a reduced time for primary care visits. The average is just under 15 minutes. And then this can then account for the fact that 76% of visits result in a drug prescription. In terms of access, Melinda Gates has focused her attention on contraceptives, which she calls the greatest anti-poverty tool for the 200 million women who don't have access to them. The second issue is that women are not trusted with their own bodies. Even when there is access, they're not trusted by the healthcare and legal systems. Their pain is often trivialized or ignored altogether, resulting in unnecessary suffering. Psychologist Becky Spellman writes, "Women with chronic pain conditions are much more likely than men to be diagnosed as having a condition that is psychological or psychosomatic in origin." Now, while it's true that some conditions certainly do have a psychosomatic component to them, that this assumption then leads to women not being treated in time or things that could have been treatable becoming chronic illnesses. Currently, it takes 7 years for a woman to be diagnosed with endometriosis, an illness that affects 170 million women globally. This condition is, this phenomenon is especially true for Black women. Even tennis star Serena Williams had trouble getting the care that she was advocating for after her complications from her cesarean birth. Okay, and then the third issue is lack of funding. So even where innovation in women's health and wellness could exist, the funding is often not there. 2.2%. Women-run startups received 2.2% of all VC investments in 2017. And only 4% of funding for healthcare research and development was invested in women's health globally. There's also a lack of funding and attention on studies that involve female participants. So clinical studies are often conducted on men, and then the results are extrapolated to the rest of us, despite the fact that men and women respond differently to different medicines and can present different symptoms for the same problem. For example, a tingly left arm or chest pain is often a sign of heart attack in men, whereas women are much more likely to report nausea or back pain for the same issue. And the unfortunate truth is that women's health is actually getting worse. The conditions that disproportionately affect women, autoimmune disorders, anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, STDs, maternal mortality rates are all on the rise. The US has the highest maternal mortality rate in the industrialized world, with 26.4 maternal deaths per 100,000 births, and this figure nearly doubles for Black women. At the same time, we're seeing care being restricted. An increasing number of US states are passing laws that restrict abortion. So despite all that, I am still very optimistic about the future of women's health and the $50 billion by 2025 femtech industry. We recently sold Moxley, and it's gotten me thinking a lot about the future and how consumer and design trends will shape tomorrow. So let's explore 4 different emerging social themes that I'm excited about and how design can be used to leverage and improve women's health. The first is wellness. In order to advance health, we have to stop thinking about illness and start focusing on wellness. Author Claire Pooley describes the importance of this reframing in her book, The Sober Diaries. So in it, she writes that excessive drinking is associated with increased anxiety, increased depression, and breast cancer, all of which are more likely to affect women. If sobriety, she argues, meant wellness, it'd be a much more popular club to join. But it isn't. Sobriety is associated with illness, and nobody wants to stand up and announce to a group of strangers their illness. And so we see that there is a rise of excessive drinking among professional women in their 30s and 40s. And at the same time we see this increase in drinking, we see an increase in women working outside the home. And yet, despite how much we're working outside the home, working mothers still see their children just as much as stay-at-home mothers did in 1975, and the majority of the housework falls to women in straight marriages. So as damaging as increased work stress levels are, it's also fueled a wellness trend as we seek to improve our performance at work. Meditation, yoga, silent retreats, vitamins, extreme dieting, boot camp exercises are all increasing in popularity. And so the next step is to push the conversation further from how do I use meditation to do more work to how do I bring a sense of wellness to everyday life. The second theme is accessibility. Now, a cold, distancing tech is often to blame for an increased sense of isolation and anxiety in our culture. But the benefit of a cold and distancing tech is that it can also be anonymous and unbiased. We can leverage aspects of technology to counteract the stigma that we have with illness and the biases that medical professionals have that leads to misdiagnosis in female patients in order to take health into our own hands. So in March this year, I became very sick. It was just a few months ago, and it was quite maddening because every day I woke up the same, very high fever, extreme fatigue, and coughing to the point of pain and nausea. And nothing I did helped my symptoms. This persisted for 2 weeks, and yet the doctors insisted that I just needed some rest and a cup of tea. Then I discovered Ada, which is an AI diagnostics tool that leverages the safety of anonymity with big data to empower users to self-diagnose. So I typed my symptoms into the user interface, which looks exactly like this, and it suggested that I have pneumonia. So armed with this digital diagnosis, I was able to convince my doctor to give me a chest x-ray, and sure enough, I had not a tea-curing illness, but a life-threatening infection, pneumonia, where the lungs were filling with fluid. I was able to get the medicine to be back on track for health within 3 days. And because of this experience, I really believe in a future where doctors are not our only arbiters of health, where AI and big data can unlock unknown truths about women's health and bodies to arm us with the information that we need in order to become stewards of our own health. Number 3, good design is all about context. One of our big insights at Moxley was that breast pumps were designed for home and hospital use, but motherhood has changed and women are pumping at work, at home, on the go, and while traveling. As people work more and travel more, and it only increases the demand for at-home solutions across industries. Direct-to-consumer startups are starting to offer solutions to bring healthcare home. For example, NewRx sends prescriptions to your door, and San Francisco-based Fig will soon provide users the ability to test for STDs and STIs in the comfort of their home. Tia, the women's wellness company that I mentioned earlier, is connecting home care and in-clinic treatment through what they call cycle-connected care. So their app helps you manage and track stress, anxiety, and pain, while their clinic feels more like your best friend's living room than a doctor's office, and offers pelvic exams, acupuncture, and access to medical professionals who are focused on women's health. Apple finally announced earlier this month that they'll be offering a period tracking app called Cycles. But HealthKit launched in 2014. And if there's an app for that culture, why does it take 5 years to include a critical component to health for half the population? It's time to consider context in our conversations of health, to not think just about physical symptoms that we can measure, but ways in which our work, our families, our food, our environments, our movement, our hormones, our mental and physical health all work together to create the full picture of health. And number 4 is transparency. With the increase of fake news accusations, people are longing for truth and connection and transparency more than ever. And women have been bravely sharing their lived experiences through Me Too, #YouKnowMe, and an increase in vulnerability at work thanks to Brené Brown. Even selfie culture encourages women to portray themselves through their own lenses. I believe in a future that supports the conversation around transparency and lived experiences. There are many design opportunities to create tools to support that. We see it in clothing company Everlane's radical pricing and transparency and their factory photos on their website. And we see it in Lizzo's cover for her top 10 Billboard album, 'Cause I Love You. Design can support this future by creating products and services to destigmatize our taboos around women's bodies and meet people where they are. How can design help in women's health? Look for the taboos. Today's taboos are the industries of tomorrow. Glasses, once stigmatized as a medical device, are now a $100 billion industry. They've been so successfully destigmatized that 19% of US adults wear them without prescription. And women hid in closets to pump when we started Moxley. We designed the flow to arm women with the tools they needed so they could pump wherever they are. So now I turn it to you. Where are the taboos in your field? How might you intervene in stigma and create dialogue through products, services, campaigns, and events that will shape the future? Thank you.